Hi, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, I have as my special guest Nadia Arbach, a decluttering specialist. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Tara. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to
Absolutely.
be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. We did a show months ago about digital decluttering, and today we're going to kind of make a switch and talk about physical cluttering because you're an expert in this area. And before we start into that, though, I want you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do in your business.
Okay, great. So actually, I started out as a physical decluttering specialist. And I opened my business, Clear the Decks, in 2015. So I am coming up to my 10th anniversary as a professional declutterer and organizer. And so what I did in that business was go into people's houses and help them declutter the things that they no longer needed in their life. And then I moved that over to becoming a digital decluttering specialist for entrepreneurs. So I also now help them declutter their businesses. And that's what we talked about last time that I was on the show. And this time we're going to talk about physical clutter. And I'm looking forward to your questions and helping you, your audience, think about how to declutter their physical items from their house.
All right. Well, yes. So we're before we start into the whole, Q&A around this, I want to get a definition from you about what you think clutter is. What is clutter exactly?
Right. So the way that I define clutter is anything that you have in your house that is not serving you right now for the life that you're living right now, not the life that you wish you could live, and not the life that you lived in the past, but the one that you are in right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting you say right now because
Mhm.
sometimes we have stuff that's stored in the closet or in a box, not even opened. I have some stuff like that,
Yeah.
never used, tags that are still on it. That's kind of clutter, right? Under your definition?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got something that you have saved for later and you haven't used it and you know that you can't use it right now in your life, then yeah, that's what I call clutter.
All right. Why don't you share a little bit about the impact of clutter, and we'll dive into it in a little more detail. But why don't you just tell us like why it's just not the greatest thing to have around you?
Okay. Well, I think people can feel in their homes that it's not the greatest thing to have around you. First of all, to me, it gives you a low grade sense of irritation, frustration, worry that's just following you around all the time. Because when you're in your home, you see the clutter and it's just sort of niggling in the back of your brain, and you're constantly subconsciously thinking, why is this stuff here? Why do I have so much? Or maybe it's in the forefront of your mind and you're thinking, why did I accumulate so much stuff? How come I can't let it go? And so you're having a conversation in yourself with yourself that is taking up space in your brain that you could be using for other things. And the clutter itself physically is taking space up in your home that you could be using for other things, or that could be cleared so that you could have more space to do the things that you actually do.
Yeah, and I think that's why it feels so good when we go visit a model home or something, when we're in somebody else's Airbnb and it's like, oh, this feels so good. There's nothing around, because they're not going to
Yeah.
invite you into a cluttered home. Yeah, and I know for myself, like, when I see clutter, and I just don't feel so good about it. It just makes the whole experience like not so much fun. All right. So let's talk a little bit about why we clutter because, I guess when we understand the reasons why, we can do something about it. So, what are some common reasons why people accumulate clutter?
That's a great question. And in my framework, the way that I do it, when I was working with people in their homes, I noticed different habits and behaviors that would come up over and over again that led to clutter in people's homes. So what I did was I created a framework called the 7 clutter triggers, and it explains the main habits and behaviors that people have that cause clutter. And so you could be on the side of overaccumulating, where you just bring too many things in your house, more than you could reasonably expect to use. And because of excitement or boredom or the thrill of, getting something on sale. Or you could be more on the other side of, like, you have the things in your home and it's so hard for you to let go of them because you have habits that might lead you to think, well, this could come in handy someday, or it's perfectly good, I might as well use it, or I promised that I would do this thing and therefore I'm going to keep the items that are relevant to it, or keeping things in your diary that you don't want to do, that other people asked you to do. That's also clutter. Like, time clutter is also clutter, even though it's not physical. So there's all sorts of different habits and behaviors that cause us to accumulate things, and that also cause us to be for it to be difficult to let go of things out of our house.
I'll tell you, 2020 was a time when people were accumulating a lot of things.
Yeah.
People were buying stuff, and whether it was food or desks, because people had to suddenly bring all their office, like from the office to their home. And after 2020, like I would say around 2022, you started seeing a lot of people putting stuff out at the curb for people to take, and just
Mhm.
getting rid of so much stuff. It was like unreal how much people had packed into their homes because they didn't really know if they'd have access outside of the home. So yeah, I mean, that was some of it was driven by fear. Some of it was just like, oh, now I got to bring the office in the house. And for some people, that meant two offices. I remember meeting somebody online. The husband and the wife lived in a tiny apartment in New York.
Mhm.
They both had to suddenly work at home, and they were both like sitting next to each other at the kitchen table. That's all they had in a tiny apartment in New York. They both suddenly had to work at home. So, like, clutter became a really big issue for them.
Yes,
No
it
space.
definitely did that. In 2020, I think that was an unusual situation
Yeah.
that we were all put in at that time, because it was working that way for quite a lot of the world. People had to work from home sometimes. People had to accumulate more than they thought they would normally do. And then when things started to come back to the way that we used to do them, we did have all that extra stuff in our homes, and yeah, you would have to get rid of it, or sometimes it has stayed, or
Right.
or yeah, people are letting go of it very slowly, like more slowly, because it was more stuff than they expected. And the same kind of thing can happen, not to the whole world at once like it did there, but sometimes when you inherit things, from deceased relatives, or when you bring two households together, or sometimes also when there's a divorce in the family. There's all sorts of ways that you can suddenly accumulate more clutter than, or accumulate more things, some of which are clutter, than you would have in a kind of a normal situation.
Yeah, and that's the time you really need to have some good habits in place, because it's just overwhelming. Yeah, I've lived through some of that with a parent dying. It's like, oh my God.
Mhm.
Anyway, well, let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of decluttering, because when people see the positive aspects of letting things go, I think that can really help them take that first hard step sometimes to start the process. What's your
Yes.
comment on that?
Absolutely, definitely. There are so many benefits to decluttering, both mental and physical. So in the physical sense, it's more clear to see that there is a transformation in your house where there's more space available. And therefore, you are not moving piles all over the house from one place to another just to get to something that you wanted. So there's an ease of movement and there's a flow that happens in your house so that you can use the things that you actually use and you don't have things impeding you. So that's a visible result. But there's also some mental and emotional results that are not necessarily visible to others, but that can affect you really strongly. And some of those are, you are able to sleep better because there's not that niggling worry at the back of your mind that you have too much stuff in your house or that it's sort of encroaching on you in your house. You can feel better, as in, you know that you have decluttered and therefore you have been capable of letting go of things. And that means for you that you are able to let go of other things as well, including habits that are entirely emotional and mental, not that sort of manifest themselves in things in your house, but
Hmm.
other habits. And the mental, the knowledge of the fact that you are capable of doing it. And then there's the emotional effect, which means that you are surrounded by things now that mean something to you and that help you in your life every day. And so you have that, there's a much more positive feeling that comes with that because you know you don't have anything left over in your house that has a negative connotation, because you have let that go. So it's all much more positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned things like you did because, like, when I go to sleep at night, I have to have all
Mhm.
my clothes folded up and certain things arranged on my dresser because I can't stand that messiness when I'm trying to fall asleep. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just the thing I do. It makes a huge difference just knowing like there's not clothes like all strewn around, and you know what I mean? They're all like
Mhm.
folded or they're put in a hamper or something. It
Absolutely.
makes a huge difference in me. I'm very sensitive to my environment. So
Mhm.
things out of place, that's probably OCD too. They just don't work well for me.
Yes, absolutely, and I feel the same way about clothes, so I need to have mine put away or folded, and the next day's clothes are already laid out on my dresser top. But there's also, like, the fact that you might not be able to sleep well if you have you know that there's clutter. And there's also one thing that, I found that quite a lot of clients couldn't fall asleep very easily if they had things under their bed, because
Yeah.
sometimes we use, like, under your bed, and I'm not talking about under bed storage that's like properly in like a container and then stored under your bed. I'm talking about, like a random box or a random pile of stuff shoved under the bed, and just the knowledge that you're sleeping on top of it, even though you don't actually think that thought, your body knows and your mind knows that you're sleeping on top of clutter, and it really, really makes a difference. So if you are sensitive, the first thing that I might tell you is to get those piles out from under your bed and put those things away or declutter them, because sleeping with nothing under your bed, it causes a much more satisfying sleep.
Yeah, I totally believe that because
Mm,
I have those like containers from IKEA, and
yeah.
my blankets and things are all folded and they're put
Mhm.
in containers that are black so you can't even see through them, and they're
Yeah.
put under the bed carefully. I don't put electronics under the bed. I don't put like things that I don't like or anywhere near me. Like I even put my phone in another room. Like I don't want
Mhm.
any electronics near me. I'm very concerned
Yeah.
about clutter and how it feels to me. I want to be in a natural kind of environment to sleep. Um, totally understand all of that. And, even when I have a big project, like I
Mhm.
literally will clear my desk off, even if it means putting the stuff in another room so that
Yeah.
I can like mentally have some peace at my desk, you know?
Absolutely. So that you can work properly and you don't
Mhm.
see something that then sometimes like sparks the thought, oh, I should be working on that. Or just you have a different project in the back of your mind as you're working on the current one. So, yeah, I totally understand moving things away, from your current desk. But even better if you have somewhere to store them so that, they are not just in a pile in a different room, but somewhere on a
Right.
shelf or, in a drawer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about moving the clutter from place to place, like roving
Yeah.
clutter. Yeah, so the next thing I'd like to turn to is decluttering strategies and techniques. And let's talk about a few of those because people want to know, they know there's an issue, they know they don't feel very good about it, but what can they do? And what's the first one we can explore?
Okay. So a lot of people will tell you to start with a checklist. Um, and there are lots of checklists that you can get online that are like 101 things that you can declutter without even feeling bad about it. And of course, go and do that if you would like to have a quick win kind of decluttering session. But that's not how I start. How I start is I ask my clients to walk around their house and not touch anything or do anything with any of the objects in it. Just walk around their house and notice the things. And when they are looking at the things, I want them to think, this item is clutter. I don't want them to do anything with it. I just want them to maybe write it down in a notebook. I want them to find 20 things that are almost certainly clutter in their house and then come back and write them down in a list and look at those and think, okay, why are those clutter to me? How did they get here? And why is it hard for me to let that go? Because my process is a lot more about your mental attitude and your habits and behaviors. And therefore, a checklist, while great to begin with, is not going to cut it for some of those harder to let go of items. And so we always want to start diving deep into why the things are there and how they got there and why it's so hard to let them go.
I love this idea of noticing
Mm,
because that brings us into being very present and not being in that trance-like state when we're,
yeah.
we just operate on, like a robot during the day in our homes because
Hmm.
we don't even notice everything. We're like blind to it all because we can't
Yeah.
take it all in. And
That's true.
that part of noticing, I mean, I was just going through this mentally while you were talking about it. And it's like, it pops you out of that and really makes you look at things around you,
Yeah.
and I don't think people really do that.
No, a lot of people will not notice and they won't be aware that they're engaging in whatever habits cause them to accumulate clutter or would not be able to let it go. But so that's why I always tell my clients that when you notice, as soon as you notice yourself engaging in a behavior that's causing clutter or not being able to let go, pat yourself on the back like right away because you have noticed, and that is what other people will not even do. So it's worth celebrating and congratulating yourself just for noticing, even if you didn't manage to like get around the habit this time. Just just being aware of it is half of the work in letting go of clutter.
All right. So number one is notice and
Mhm.
note it. Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what's another strategy or technique people can use? What do you do after that? What's one thing? And we'll talk about a few more, but
Okay, sure, yeah. So once if you have a list of 20 things that you know to be clutter in your house, then looking at them, you might be able to pinpoint a few patterns in there about why they're there, about how they got there. And then once you do, like say you've got a list of things, and a lot of the items on that list are what you might call aspirational clutter. Like you bought the hiking boots, but you've actually never gone hiking. And you also have like a cool compass that you bought for the same purpose and the fancy outdoor gloves that go to minus 30 or something, and you never use them. So but you wish that you were a person who did the outdoor hiking and who could like book a weekend off to go explore nature and do a lot of stuff in the outdoors. But you're actually not that person, and deep down that you never will be. Then that's some. And if you've got a few things on your list that correspond with that kind of, I wish I was this kind of person, but I'm actually not. That is a clue to you to figure out. Like that will help you figure out what mainly is clutter in your house, because that might be your habit of wishing that you're somebody that you're not, or trying to pick up habits because you think they're good habits, or do things because you think they're like, um, well, not cool, but like that they would be good for you. And sometimes they're just not. And you can think of something else that might replace it that you would actually do. And then
right.
maybe if you bought those things, the things that correspond with that, then you would actually use them. But the things that you're not using, even though they might be like fantastic items, those are clutter for you. They might not be clutter for somebody else, but they're clutter for you.
That's an amazing concept, aspirational clutter. I've never
Yeah.
really thought about that, but We see that even in the online world that we're both in. I
Yeah.
mean, people, they say, "Oh, I bought this," and so everybody
Mhm.
buys it and they never use it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who hasn't been there, right?
Who hasn't been there? Yeah, absolutely.
Aspirational clutter. I
Yeah.
love it. Oh my God,
Mhm.
that's a good one. All right, let's talk about another. And the thing with the aspirational clutter, we can go find somebody who wants to actually do that where it wouldn't be aspirational. Then we can home those
Mhm.
hiking boots and compass and gloves to somebody who's going to use them.
Yes,
That feels
absolutely
great.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah, we got all
Yeah.
these marketplaces out there.
Mm, there
So
are, and you can make some money with the clutter that you have if it's in good condition, never used or
yeah.
lightly used, and you have the time and inclination to put it somewhere like on eBay or whatever other place you could sell it on, and actually, follow up and send it and, make that money that way. But you don't have to. And that's also something that I discuss with my clients. Like, how are we going to actually let go these things go out of your house? Okay, so if
Yeah.
you're mentally ready to let it go out, then there are various solutions. Like, if it's in bad condition, obviously you're going to dispose of it in whichever way you need to. You have to be safe about certain items that you're throwing out. You can donate it, you can rehome it to a friend, you can sell it, or if it needs to be recycled, then you can recycle it. There are a lot of ways, and that requires some thinking. We can't let ourselves be stopped right as the thing is going out the door, or right as we're ready to let the thing go out of the door, by the logistics behind it. So,
Mhm.
what I also have for my clients is like there's always a list that they can fill out, which I ask them to do the research for, where like where's their closest recycling facility, who has a car if they don't have one that can help them get to a place that they can donate stuff, which charities do they want to donate to, and which friends do they think might accept these items, and then have the conversation with them, don't just dump it on them, and that kind of thing. So like all the logistics stuff that goes with decluttering.
Yeah, one of the things I see, because I'm in different groups around this concept, I see people like wanting to always make money off of stuff.
Mm, yeah.
I don't care what it is. I
Hmm.
don't sell stuff. I just give it away. Like
Yeah.
I even had a brand new, never worn wedding dress and all the stuff. And that costs a lot of money. And guess
Hmm.
what? I just donated it.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I didn't even take a write off. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted it out of my sight because it was
Hmm.
kind of aspirational, right? I didn't get,
Hmm.
I called off the wedding, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
wasn't going to keep that around me. And I certainly
Yeah.
didn't want to make money off it. Heck, I just wanted to
Yeah.
give it to somebody so somebody had like something awesome. That whole money thing, trying to always find the money around it as your excuse, I think it's an
Yeah.
excuse code to
Yeah.
not get rid of stuff.
Oh, that's really good, Tara. You've got that down. I think that you're right. A lot of the time, or else it's a scarcity thinking thing where you worry about having spent the money, and therefore you keep the thing because you need to use it because you spent the money. But like either way, I actually agree with you about not selling stuff. I've hardly ever sold stuff that I was decluttering. I think it's so much nicer and freer to give it away and just like send good wishes with it
Mhm.
to whoever is going to receive it later. And just, write it off in your own head as something that you spent money on and you realized it was a mistake. And then the money was therefore spent in telling you what is the right thing for your life and what isn't. And so the money was spent wisely in the end, even though you didn't keep the thing.
And you could totally reframe it, because I've given away things that still were brand new with tags on it.
Yeah.
Is you bought a gift for some unknown person
Yeah.
and leave it
Yeah.
at that. I mean,
Yeah.
people love to buy gifts. You're just buying a gift and somebody's going to be super happy. Um, Super happy.
Yeah.
And to me, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
And it matters that it's out of my face. Like I don't want to see it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. It's so nice to give it away and just think that it's causing something really positive to happen in somebody else's life where it didn't cause something positive to happen in your life. So it's just the
Yeah.
positivity is passed on.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like a passing clutter in the night, right? Just keeps on moving on.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, with some of the remaining time that we have, let's talk about maintaining a decluttered space. So, you've like gotten brave, you've gotten rid of stuff, you've got it either in boxes ready to go to somebody, or they're going to come pick it up, or you've
Mhm.
homed it to friends. Um, what do you do to try to keep this good habit in place so that you don't do another a replay of all this?
Yeah. Okay, so having done the decluttering, you are now hopefully aware of whichever habits and behaviors caused you to pick up the clutter. And therefore, you are going to start watching and noticing those behaviors more and trying to reduce the frequency or intensity of those behaviors so that you bring less in. So, like, don't worry about what you did before. From this day forward, you are going to accumulate less. And you're going to do it in a much more mindful way because you just watched some of your things go out the door. And you're going to think about whenever you acquire something, okay, when is this thing going to leave my house? And how is it going to leave my house? What is the exit strategy for this thing? Even if you're really like in love with this thing right now, you're going to think this item has a lifetime. I want to use it for as long as I can. And then how is it going to leave my house in the end?
Yeah, well said. So basically we should have an exit strategy for everything we bring in this house, right?
Yes, we should. I know it's very hard to do. I mean, we bring things into our house all the time, don't we? But when, especially when it's something that is not a usual purchase and not a usual type of purchase, then think of that exit strategy for it so that you are not picking up something that is aspirational clutter that you're gonna let go of without even having used it.
I want to ask you, Nadia, one bonus question here
Sure.
is what if this is going to have to be fast, but what if you get a gift from somebody, you don't really like it, but you kind of
Mm.
got to keep it? Because what if they come over and they're ask about it, or what do you do?
Yeah, that is a hard one. That's a sense of duty kind of thing, and you're guilting yourself into keeping it. I would say if you have to and you know they're going to ask, just have it on display the first time they come over. And then after that, you don't need to anymore. You've shown them that you appreciated it. You've told them, hopefully, that you appreciate their gift no matter how much you might not like it. And the fact that it changed hands from them to you means you are now responsible for it. And you don't need to be responsible for it forever. You can regift it, you can rehome it, you can donate it, whatever you need to do. You don't need to have it in your house forever.
Do you think you should keep it any specific amount of time before you rehome it or something? Or
It
like a
depends on
guilting
the
period?
item. It really depends on the item. I can't give you a straight answer for that one, but really, like if you really, really don't like it that much, then don't have it in your house. I mean, why should you have something that you don't like?
And the reason you should give gift certificates rather than the actual gift for
Yeah,
friends
also
and
that.
family, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Don't
mhm.
put them in that position.
Yeah.
People who declutter probably know that, so they give money as opposed to, objects because they know.
Yes, always appreciated.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
All right. So as we wrap up here, Nadia, I have absolutely enjoyed our conversation, and I would love to have you on again in the future. We'll talk about something else because you're just
Yeah.
wonderful to listen to, and I love talking to you. Um, why don't you tell us what if there was one piece of advice you could give to somebody that had to do with physical decluttering, what
Mhm.
would it be?
Well, it's the same advice for physical or digital or personal or work decluttering. The advice is don't be angry at yourself. Everybody has clutter. Everybody, even professional declutterers, have clutter. And you don't have to be angry at yourself. That doesn't serve any purpose. It's not kind. Just treat yourself like you would treat a friend. And just give yourself pats on the back every time you work on it and you get closer to your goal of transforming your house into something that is not cluttered, but that is more clear than before.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Nadia Arbach, decluttering specialist, for being a guest on our program. If you'd like
Thank
more
you.
information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.